Hello everyone. In this series of deep learning using PyTorch, we are essentially going to understand about how you create complex deep learning models using frameworks like PyTorch. So we are not only going to discuss about PyTorch as a framework in detail, but we are also going to touch base on the fundamentals of deep learning that we already have dealt with in the previous module. However, we are going to consider real world problems at the end of this particular module and then solve them using PyTorch. Okay, so we are going to consider PyTorch framework in order to write code or develop deep learning models and finally deploy it. So before we begin with any of this, let's look at a formal introduction for these three different terms: artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. How deep learning is related to machine learning, and how deep learning and machine learning are related to AI, which is a broader discipline. So AI can be considered as a discipline under computer science, so which basically is to incorporate human intelligence into machines. So the human intelligence that we are incorporating into machines can be anything. It can be a machine learning model, or it need not be a machine learning model. It could be a simple rule based explicit programming that you must have written, which actually avoids a human repetitive task. But if you observe carefully, machine learning here is a subset of artificial intelligence. So ML modeling is all about learning from the data. So all the ML models that you are going to create is basically learning certain patterns from the given data. Okay, without actually having any explicit programming as such. However, if you are observing carefully, deep learning again is a subset within machine learning, and there are certain evident differences in between machine learning and deep learning, which we are going to cover in a while from now. However, deep learning, as you know, are nothing but artificial neural networks that are going to help us process more complex patterns. So if you are looking at this particular diagram that I have presented, this clearly explains the difference between a traditional machine learning model versus a deep learning model. So here there is an additional step or entity, which is feature extraction in a simple supervised learning problem that we are trying to solve. The input data is presented. So based on the domain expertise or based on certain feature engineering approaches, you might come up with a set of features, a broader set of features, which is completely manual in nature. So the number of features that you are going to end up considering for solving this binary classification problem is fairly limited, right? So ultimately, you are going to produce an output, which is nothing but the predictions, which would imply whether it's a car or not a car. The object that's presented to the model actually helps us understand if it's a car or not a car based on the predicted output. So, however, deep learning models has got this innate ability of feature extraction. So you need not explicitly create features as such. The feature engineering process is completely automated. We can simply say that deep learning is a class of machine learning model or machine learning algorithms that uses multiple hidden layers to progressively extract higher level features from the raw input data. So we are further going to investigate on how feature extraction is possible, right? In case of a convolutional neural network problem, or in case of image processing to be more precise. So the lower layers, the initial layers might identify edges from the images, while the higher layers might identify the concepts relevant to a human face or a digit, or depending on what kind of input that you have presented to the network, right? So as we progress through the network, let's say that there are multiple hidden layers within the artificial neural network. Let's say that there are three different hidden layers. As we progress through these hidden layers, the level of abstraction increases. The non-linearity of X data is being represented better and better. So the initial layer, the initial hidden layer might explain well about the edges of that particular image. But as you progress further through your network, you might be able to explain the non-linear aspect of your X data. Okay. So there are multiple hidden layers. There could be multiple hidden layers in your deep learning neural network. There is one input layer where you present your complete data here. And there's one output layer, which are nothing but predictions. A probable deep learning neural network architecture is better represented like what you are currently observing in this particular slide. This is a multi-layer perceptron where you are observing two different hidden layers, one input layer and one output layer. So the predictions are being perceived from the output here. So the input can be anything. For a deep learning model, it could be a structured data or it could be unstructured data. A typical machine learning model might always expect a structured data, right? And Deep learning model can also expect an unstructured data. The input data can be image data. It could also be audio waveform data, or it could be text data. So whatever data that you are presenting to the network, or whatever problem that you are trying to solve, you are necessarily converting that into numeric data, which is understandable by the network. So you always need to convert your images into numeric data. You always need to convert your audio waveform data into numeric data again. So this is one of the primary pre-processing steps that we are supposed to incorporate before we begin with model training process, which we are already aware of. Okay, I believe you have broadly understood the difference between a traditional machine learning model versus a deep learning model, when to use what. So there's another scenario, like whenever your data is fairly limited, like let's say that you have few thousands of observations within your data, and the traditional machine learning model, like the performance of the model increases to a certain extent and it plateaus after that. So on x-axis you are observing the data volume, on y-axis you are observing the performance of the model. So the performance of the model plateaus even if the data increases beyond a specific point for your traditional machine learning model. But for deep learning models, right? For deep learning models, the performance of the model increases linearly with increase in data volume. It doesn't plateau like your traditional machine learning model. So as and when you are providing more and more data to the network, the performance of the model increases linearly like what you are currently observing. So whenever you are having humongous amount of data, whenever you are having like large amounts of data, and given that you have sufficient compute for you to process or for you to train your model upon, you can always go about choosing a deep learning model versus a traditional machine learning problem. So if you are trying to solve a problem with fairly limited number of observations, then your traditional machine learning model may be more appropriate choice. So this is a basic difference on when to consider what model. Now let's move on to the frameworks here. What essentially is a framework? In software engineering or in any software application that you are trying to develop, framework is a kind of utility or a tool which is going to help you develop an application way quickly, right? You are going to leverage the methods or functions that are defined in that particular framework to quickly or rapidly prototype your application and then deploy it. So that's why frameworks are used, right? Similarly, for deep learning models, for training your deep learning models, you essentially have multiple frameworks like Keras, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Cafe, Torch, and so on, right? There are these different frameworks, large number of frameworks that are available to us, but it is a choice of the data scientist to choose what framework suits for his needs or for the problem that he's trying to solve. Here I have tried to enlist the difference between PyTorch and TensorFlow as a whole. We clearly know that PyTorch is created by Facebook, TensorFlow is created by Google, and the level of API that both these frameworks has got high efficiency APIs that is basically going to help extend the PyTorch libraries that we already are leveraging. The compute, so you basically can train your model or enable parallel processing by training your model on GPUs and TPUs using both PyTorch as well as TensorFlow. Doesn't matter. You can run your code on GPUs using PyTorch as well as TensorFlow. But there are two distinctive features where PyTorch gains an edge over TensorFlow is during debugging and computation graphs. So what exactly is computation graph? So dynamic computation graph is one of the most useful features of PyTorch, which essentially creates these computation graphs on the fly during the forward pass and backward pass of a particular batch that's being presented to your network. So every batch that you present to your network undergoes a forward propagation and a backward propagation. So the computation graphs, nothing but the sequence of mathematical operations that you're supposed to perform on the given data, right, are created dynamically using PyTorch, right? They are static pretty much in older versions of TensorFlow. So the computation graph, that is a sequence of different mathematical operations that one needs to perform in forward and backward passes, are pretty much static or predefined or defined before the training process is begun. Okay, so this is the basic difference between PyTorch and TensorFlow. The debugging is pretty easier in PyTorch, whereas you'll have to learn TensorFlow debugger separately when it comes to TensorFlow, because we generally use PDB itself. PDB is a Python debugger that we generally use to debug any issue. But TensorFlow doesn't use PDB. It uses TFDBG, which has to be learned separately. So these are the primary differences on a pretty high level. So now let's also look at the popularity in the most recent days. Let's open this particular Google Trends, and you clearly can observe the difference in the popularity for these two different search terms, PyTorch and TensorFlow, in the past 5 years globally. So we clearly understand the magnitude of difference in the interest shown by users over time. PyTorch is actually winning over TensorFlow in terms of popularity. All right. Even when you visit this particular website called Papers with Code, where all the machine learning related papers are being published along with their code, right? Even when I go for trends page pertinent to this particular website, you basically understand that PyTorch has clear edge over other frameworks that there are. So here we have different frameworks like PyTorch, TensorFlow, JAX, MXNet, Paddle, Torch, Cafe, and Mindspore. We clearly understand that PyTorch has got 60% of repos that are published, whereas TensorFlow has got only 2% of the total number of repos that are published as of June 24. This itself is stating that there are more and more users who are publishing papers using PyTorch over other frameworks. Not just these, there are wide array of applications in multiple domains. Like Tesla's self-driving cars actually uses PyTorch in the backend. For reinforcement learning and all, they generally use PyTorch framework. So even OpenAI uses PyTorch heavily. And we need not mention about Facebook at all. So Facebook also leverages PyTorch heavily because it's developed by Facebook itself. Okay. In the next session, we are going to deep dive into understanding the fundamental building blocks of PyTorch framework, which are tensors. Okay. Before we get into that, let's also look at the difference between CPU and GPU, since we already have discussed about the compute here. All the generative AI related models are becoming more and more accurate and more prominent only because of the amount of data that the models are trained on and the amount of compute that the data scientists are exposed to for training their models. So they are heavily leveraging the GPUs and TPUs that are given to them, right? So GPUs generally have got hundreds of simpler cores when compared to CPU. CPU just might have 4 or 8 or 16 in general. There are only very limited number of cores. And GPU, on the other hand, which is graphical processor unit, which was originally developed for gaming. In gaming, generally you need to render the graphics very rapidly. For that, you might not rely on CPU, which has only fairly limited number of cores, where you might be exposed to hundreds and thousands of different cores in GPU. So that helps enable the parallel processing. So you'll be allowed to train your model on GPUs with an interface called CUDA when it comes to PyTorch. So we are going to discuss more about this particular interface in our further sessions. But please keep in mind that we are going to enable parallel computing and parallel processing, with which the overall train time that would take will be greatly reduced, right? It not only reduces the overall train time or run time, but it also help you to train your model on large amount of data. So you cannot go about train your model on large amount of data just by using CPU. So this is less applicable to deep learning. So using CPU is very less applicable to deep learning, and using GPU and TPUs are more applicable to deep learning models. So TPU stands for Tensor Processing Unit, right? So we are going to deep dive into what tensors are in our subsequent session. So that's all in this particular session, and thanks for watching.